Hey folks, David Stewart here. Let's play a little bit of guitar. Got my right hand nice and blown up big for you so you can see everything that I'm doing. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the percussion techniques that you will use in flamenco on the flamenco guitar. There's three main percussion techniques you have to know. Collectively, they end up being called Tambora, which means a drum. But if you don't play flamenco, you can still use these techniques in your own style or in your own music to add some percussion elements into what you're doing. And I've seen some folk guitar players doing some of this and to very, very good effect. If you're studying flamenco, then you're going to need to know these techniques because they're used pretty extensively in flamenco. At least the first two are. The first two are used very extensively. The third one is used more in ensemble playing. However, it's also present in a lot of classical guitar literature, so you'll want to stay tuned and know about that one. The first technique that we need to know for percussion on the flamenco guitar is just called the golpe tap, and that's usually performed by tapping the top of your guitar, usually with your ring finger, but you can do it with any finger. You can do it with all your fingers. You can play a little rhythm if you want to, with a couple of different fingers. And before I go any further, let me mention I do have a top protector on my guitar, and all flamenco guitars should have something on the top to keep you from knocking a hole in it like Willie Nelson's guitar. And that also enhances a little bit the sound of the percussion. If I was knocking on raw wood, it wouldn't sound quite as nice and precise as that little piece of plastic. It gives a little more high-end punch. So the way I perform it is that I do it with my ring finger, and rather than doing just the nail, I do the flesh of the finger and the nail at the same time. So they're both touching at the same time, which gives it a little bit more of a thunk sound with it too. So rather than just a little tap, it's got a nice big heavy thunk. It's nice and loud. So when you hear it in context, it's nice and precise and will cut through the mix, cut through a whole ensemble dancing possibly. So that's how I do it. I do it with the flesh and the nail at the same time. And one of the things that you'll see when this is actually used in context, you'll see it used in context in two sort of ways. One way is to mark a beat, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6. So in that case, in that solia, I'm marking beat 4 with the tap. And then creating a little bit of a syncopation. And you can see this like a flurry of them in bulerías sometimes, where I'm playing just a bunch of syncopations. And the other way that you'll see it is you'll see it with the strum at the same time. Sometimes you can do it off the beat as well, but usually it's on the beat. Most often it's on the beat. And you can do it with the strum or without it. So the way that you really need to practice to get this right is, rather than just doing this as you're learning the compás and then trying to get that upstroke in there, you should practice doing your regular rasgueado ups and downs. And when you're doing the down, learn to do an exchange, so when you flick down, the ring finger comes down and taps at the same time. Hopefully you can see that nice and big and clear. So as this flicks, that comes down at the same time, so that the flick across the strings and the tap on the top of the guitar happening at the exact same time. Then all you have to do to create a syncopation is flick, but don't hit the string. So the ring finger taps down, the index finger moves forward but doesn't hit the strings but hits them on the way up. And even though I'm only hitting like mostly the higher strings when I do that upstroke, it sounds fine in context. Right, so we get that. Okay, so that's the main way that you're going to see it. With the strum is how you should practice it. And then when you want to have it without the strum, you just learn to do this in midair and tap at the same time, and then you can hit the upstroke for that wonderful syncopation sound. And we see this in a bunch of different ways. That syncopation is one that I happen to like a lot in Percussion, which is what I'm playing here. I'm doing it very slowly. 1 and 2 and. So I'm doing 1 E and All right. So you can do that in Percussion. You can do it in a bunch of different flamenco forms as you start to learn them as well. So that's the main one. That's the one you really got to have down, because that one sort of serves all the others. And as you get into more crazy stuff, you can always be doing taps with your thumb or any other finger if you want, sometimes multiple fingers. Guys do lots of crazy stuff, and you're allowed to do lots of crazy stuff if you can think of it. The second technique that you need to know is called Tambora, which is very slightly deceptive. Because we have another technique that's also called Tambura. But basically what it is it's a tap on the frets here. Now the golpe, by the way, before I get on to the other ones, usually it's notated if you're reading sheet music as a G, as the letter G with like a box around it, okay? That's usually means golpe, and that'll be over a rest where that beat is supposed to occur in the piece. This next one you'll see as a T with a square around it, T for Tambura, for drum. And you're going to see this mostly in rumba. You can see it in other forms, but it's going to be like mostly rumba. And maybe I can just sort of switch those two around here so you can see my left hand a little bit. You can see I'm tapping here. And that is basically how you do it. All it is just a tap and a silence. In context, you may have to do a couple of things that are odd or may take some practice. When you're playing rumba, here's a basic rumba pattern. I've showed it in another video if you don't know it. Down, up, and I'm doing the up with the back of the thumb, by the way. Hopefully you can see that. See that? Down, up, slap on beat 3, and then we drag across the fingerboard. I'll do it up here so you can really see it. Slap, drag, flick, drag. So you're going 1 and 2 and slap and 4 and that's rumba. And you can do it as fast as you want to do it. You can double time it like I just did there. And all it is, it's just a little slap there. Now you can slap back here actually. And it produces a little bit more drummy effect, right? But this is a little more snare-like effect. So it depends which sound you want. You can do down here too, right? And that's what we call, basic tambora. Now the third technique is used a lot less in like solo playing. When you're playing, and that's where you are actually creating a sound that's really close to a snare drum, I guess. By taking one string and folding it over the other. And usually you're going to do it on the 6th and 5th strings, just like that. And you can actually just play those strings, 2 strings by themselves, and it produces a snare-like effect. Or you could play all the strings along with that one. So when you're strumming the strings, in a classical guitar, you'd actually maybe just play the thumb. Produce a drum effect. In flamenco, that would be too boring. And you can combine it. Right? So whenever I'm hitting those 2 strings, I'm getting that snare drum sound. I've even seen some guys kind of go crazy mode and like I think Michael Bard is a player I've seen do this. I think I've seen some other players too. You could fold like all the strings like that. You get that cool sound, right? But I haven't seen that too much in flamenco. That's more like a really super weird kind of drum sound. But that's also called tambora, and you do see it frequently in classical guitar, not frequently, but very, very occasionally in classical guitar scores. How you would use it in flamenco is you'd actually use it to do what's called scratching, which is basically just playing percussion on the guitar when you're not playing, say, compás. So you might do this, and you'll maybe mute the other strings, and another person's playing, and you're just keeping time. Whatever, let me think of one to do. whatever you wanted to do there. So that we just call it scratching or like pica, which means like itch, and that's something that you might do to accompany a dancer or accompany another person when you don't want the sound of all the chords banging out there. So that's how you would end up using those 3 techniques. The golpe, tap, tap, tap. Learn to tap as you flick, and then you're going to really have it down. Okay, and learn to tap as you flick, and you're going to really get that one down. The tambura is very easy. You're just slapping. The hard part is getting the drag off the slap. So you can practice that by itself. Slap, drag, slap, drag, slap, drag, slap, drag, slap, drag. And the last one is kind of uncomfortable. Notice, let me actually switch this over so you can really see clearly what I'm doing. I'm grabbing the string underneath with my index finger, just pulling it over and folding it. And because those 2 strings are touching together, it produces that little drum sound there. And you can do it with more than 1 string. You can do it with the 4th and the 5th if you want a little higher pitch sound. You can do it a bunch of different ways. And then from there, you're just playing regular Raschiato stuff to produce the sound of the drum. Okay, so hopefully that's been informative. I certainly hope that you will be able to use this in whatever sort of style you pursue as a guitar player. If you're looking at flamenco, you're going to make a lot of use of these, particularly that nice, snappy, tappy golpe. You guys have a great one. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You can find me online at davidvstewart.com, dvspress.com, or listen to my music at zulonline.com. That's ZUL online.com. And I'll see you guys next time. Have a great one.